Radio London.
6 minutes past 5. Great to be with you on BBC Radio London. Now, throughout the show, a lot to delve into and discuss, but I wanted to start this hour talking about my neck of the woods, West London. But for an interesting reason, residents in a West London street are now calling for a trial of electric bikes within their area to be scrapped. They have said the e-bikes are being deliberately left in dangerous places, and they're saying it's only a matter of time before someone is killed. Now, in a moment, I'm going to be speaking to one of the local residents, but first, our reporter Layla Hayes put this to Manish Karel, the general manager at Lime Bikes. She asked him if they are doing enough to keep people safe and to combat the unsafe parking of the e-bikes.
Safety is our number one concern. And so there's a lot of things that we do in order to sort of tackle bad behavior. And some of those things involve such as making sure that people can only park in certain locations. So we only allow parking where the council have given us permission to. Something else that we do is we require all viewers to take an entry photo.
Do you trust those photos?
Absolutely. Users are required to take a photo, and if we do not see the vehicle in the photo or something's missing, we do issue a fine if we do not see that the vehicle is well parked.
And so how many fines have you issued in the last year, would you say? Do you know?
We've issued thousands of fines, but this is a case of what we're doing and how we're trying to tackle the root cause of the issue, which is that there's multiple parking rules across London.
The fact remains that even if it's a small minority of people who are being irresponsible with the bikes, it's very difficult, isn't it, for pram users, wheelchair users, those who are visually impaired. I mean, there is a danger that there will be a serious accident if these bikes are just left in the middle of the pavement or the road.
It's always disappointing to hear when our bikes are being obstructive. But as I've mentioned to you before, even the small minority of users, we're tackling their behaviour through education. So they get messaging about where to park and how to park after, if they get something wrong. And also a very large team that's in London right now, a team of over 100 people going around and tackling moving any bikes that might be obstructive.
So if somebody contacts your company and says there's a bike in the way, how quickly can you respond to that and sort it out?
We can respond within 1 hour of a customer complaint. Support at ally.me is monitored 24/7 a day, and we can sort of respond very quickly in order to get that. But as I mentioned.
Listening to that is local resident Satish Batas, who lives in a street where they are trialling a Lime e-bike bay. Satish, thank you for joining me this afternoon. Can you just tell me firstly what's been happening and what's going on in your street?
Oh, hi, Shay. Thanks for having me on. The problem is, I think this trial has only been implemented in our street or our area of Hounslow for, I think, about the last couple of weeks. And pretty much immediately, we're seeing, it has to be said, it's mostly male teenagers managing to take these bikes without seemingly paying for them. And they figured out how to hack these bikes and then ride them, normally like a normal bike rather than via the electric function of the bike. And then just dumping them. I can see from the porch in the front of my house, they're intentionally leaving those outside of people's driveways for people who have their cars in driveways, blocking them in or stopping them from getting their cars in when they're coming home. And just recently, I did send the BBC a Ring doorbell video that my Ring doorbell captured when a courier was delivering something of some boys in the background trying to take one of these bikes, trying to get it to start. And when they couldn't, they deliberately dumped it at the junction, hoping that a car would come around and hit it. And I didn't see them after that because they went around the corner. I'm assuming they were watching as a very large car came around and just about missed it, having to mount the pavement outside my house to get past it.
Goodness, Satish, I suspect many people tuning into Radio London are going to be really shocked by this, because the whole point of having any kind of rental bike or e-bike is just going to make life easier. But the picture you're painting here is actually the complete opposite and quite scary. How do you feel about this?
It's terrible, especially for, as I said, the neighbours who have driveways, because they're getting blocked all the time. And I can see the bikes are sometimes being moved. I don't necessarily see them being moved at the time, but retrospectively, they have been moved from the single bay outside of people's driveways, as I said earlier. And the other problem is they've been allocated, or the council have converted one of the 6 pay and display, or beg your pardon, one of the 6 hybrid bays where both residents and paying car owners can park into a Lime hire bike bay. And the problem with that is the bikes are not necessarily putting in there, or if they are, they're overspilling into 2, 3, sometimes all 6 of those bays. And that kind of thing can't be controlled without a docking system. And I remember when we had, up until recently, I think it may have been Santander bikes, I might be wrong about that, in Hounslow. They had docks. You never saw one of them out of place. They always parked properly. You never saw them lying on the road.
That's the bit to digest for our listeners, right? I just need to describe this because we are talking about bikes. These are quite big. This is not something small that's foldable. And I'm looking at an image here on the BBC website. The National Federation for the Blind of the UK say discarded e-bikes are creating safety issues for visually impaired Londoners. And the example you use, there are bikes that are docked. So, you know, they have to be docked in the bay, and then you've got one of these Lime bikes which basically has been thrown on top of it. So these are big hefty bikes sometimes being left in places as you just described, outside your property, outside your home, where fundamentally if you want to reverse your car out of the drive, you're not going to be able to do that, are you?
Exactly right. The neighbour at the top of my road has got it worse, the one who's living closest to those bays.
Right.
I've seen him having to pick up 7 or 8 bikes just to get his lorry out. And with a lorry, you don't have a rear view mirror, you just have wing mirrors.
Sure.
It's impossible for him. When he comes home, he has to do the same thing to get his lorry back in his driveway. 2 other incidents happened recently, just round the corner from our road, on the main road, Lambton Road. Somebody's brand new BMW had a bike thrown on it intentionally and scratched. And I just found out today from another neighbour that somebody on my side of the road had an expensive 4x4. A Lime bike was placed, and listen to this, on top of the roof of his 4x4 while he was on holiday.
A Lime bike was put on top of the roof of a 4x4?
Yeah, I asked that again just to make sure that I'd got that right, and I was told yes, and he was obviously...
I mean, I guarantee... you would be livid. I'd be livid if anything was left on top of my car. That's your personal property. But people are going to be shocked by this because fundamentally the whole point of these bikes is to make it make life easier, to be able to get in and around. As you know, Satish, I'm from Hounslow. I'm a Hounslow girl, and so I know the particular streets and how some of them are very narrow. A lot of traffic can take place where you've got cars waiting on one side to allow the other cars to pass by. Then you can get, do you see what I mean? There's a lot of that in Hounslow. It's densely populated. So can you not see the argument that actually bikes like these e-bikes are needed?
They are needed, but the fact that they can A, be hacked, and B, that they can be left freestanding and therefore moved, even if it's picked up and moved rather than wheeled away, is causing a problem. If they had dedicated docks, it wouldn't be an issue. The other problem that we're having, and which my neighbours who were also interviewed by the BBC today spoke about, is that we shouldn't have these bays on a residential road. That's the other problem. Some of the cars that are coming in who perhaps aren't native to the area.
Right.
They're coming in blindingly fast because we've got an almost 90-degree turn on our road from the main road.
Right.
And they just about missed the bollard. There's 2 bollards on these bays. They just about miss hitting the bollards. Now, we also have sometimes massive great cement mixers or other types of industrial trucks coming in. They're not going to have a chance to get through.
So Councillor Catherine Dunn, who's the Hounslow Council's Cabinet Member for Climate, Environment and Transport, she has said to the BBC, we have had great take-up of the scheme so far with over 40,000 trips in the first month. So your perspective, Satish, just so I can understand, and obviously from your local area and the residents and neighbours who live near you, is it's more fundamental, the element of the fact that they're just being left willy-nilly. So the fact that you can't actually dock them, and that's therefore causing the issues around safety of where you're living.
Exactly, it's inconveniencing residents. Now, in terms of I think it was it 40,000 or so trips you mentioned? I'm just wondering how many more could Lime have if they fix the issue that of the teenagers being able to hack these bikes. They'd probably have 100,000, of paid trips if they were to fix that issue of these kids not being able to take those bikes. So they need to do something about that. What
have Lime said to you? Have you complained to Lime Bikes directly? What have they said?
I have initially when I saw this problem first started, and I was just given what looked like a pretty generic email. It wasn't necessarily copy and paste, but it was pretty basic, saying we'll come and have a look. And then the next morning, I saw that the bikes had been tidied up. But listening to the interview that your colleague had with, I think it was a Manish somebody or other.
That's right. The general manager of Lime Bikes, Manish Kaur.
Exactly. He said something that I've also been told, and by Hounslow Council, is that you know they can get these bikes moved within an hour. Well, an hour's too late. All it takes is about a minute for an accident to happen once these bikes are left in the wrong place.
So you just mentioned Hounslow Council. Have you spoken directly to the council about this as well?
After emailing Lime, I then forwarded that email to Catherine Dunn and a couple of other councillors. Catherine was the only one who responded and said that I see that you've also copied in Traffic at Hounslow. Traffic at Hounslow's earlier response had been, well, this is a trial that's going to go up for 6 months and we'll look at your comments and come back then. 6 months is way too long. We've only had these bikes, 2-3 weeks, and they're causing so many problems. What's going to happen in 6 months?
Just before you continue, to come back on some of those points you've just made there, if that's all right, Satish. Lime Bikes, as you've just said, they say response time is an hour, even though you feel it's not enough. Have they actually managed to rock up? Have they turned up within an hour or not?
I haven't seen them because basically they may be coming first thing in the morning when perhaps I'm not looking out the window. And the bay's at the end of my road, and I'd have to pretty much be at the front of my front garden to see them.
So residents are moving them.
They are doing this. Sorry, could you say that again?
I was just saying the residents are moving them. You yourselves are physically having to move these bikes.
My neighbours who are at the top end of that road are doing so, because that's where the problem is more than my end. Just
finally then, Satish, what would you like to happen? What is, because as you've mentioned and as we've been talking about on Radio London, this is a trial period. What are you hopeful that will happen?
Well, 3 things that need to happen is get the converted bay out of our road and put it somewhere where it's not affecting residents, such as, away from streets where people live, if they can do that. And the second thing is stop the hacking somehow. And third is to get docs in for these bikes. That's the only 3 things you need.
We're going to continue following this story, Satish. Thank you for joining us on Radio London, and we will of course like to keep updated with you. As you say, it's a trial period to find out how it goes. Would you be up for staying with us on Radio London in the coming months and letting us know? Thank you so much for joining me. Satish Patas, who is a local resident in Hounslow, lives in a street where the trialling of these Lime bike bay is taking place. Now, we have asked for an interview with Hounslow Council. They did send a statement saying they're working hard with the e-bike operator Lime to raise awareness of parking responsibly in designated bays. They say they also urge residents to report any issues regarding abandoned bikes, suspected hacking attempts, noise and other operational issues to support at li.me in the first instance, who will be best placed to respond. This email address is monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they say, we would like to reiterate that this is a trial scheme and we value our residents' feedback, which is why council officers are monitoring feedback on the scheme throughout the trial and working closely with Lime to address any concerns. If you'd like to email us here on Radio London, shay@bbc.co.uk, if you have been affected by these trials and you'd like to talk about exactly what is happening in your street in London, maybe it's other e-bike operators, or it could well be Lime and the bike bays have been affecting you where you're living, do drop us an email, shay@bbc.co.uk, or you can just pick up the phone, have a chat with us now, 0800 731 2000.